this special workshop session is now officially over, and I would like a big round of applause for Tadavul Financial Group for bringing this to us. Really, 4 different companies from across the region and all leaders in their sectors. I think it was a very nice start for the day. And now we can start our official agenda. So now we have a panel and a startup session, and then we'll have a coffee break. So from now on, it will flow through as if it's in the as if it's in your agenda. But of course, the time will be we're slightly off schedule. So please remain where you are. We'll start with a panel now, and then a startup session, and then we'll have a coffee break. So it's my privilege to start our first panel discussion of the day, which will be about industry-specific applications. And we'll be discussing the following points: the growing use of AI and machine learning in banking, neobanks and challenger banks, how have they performed so far, what does the future lie for them, and the finance landscape. And for that, I would like to introduce the moderator of our panel, Dr. Ahmet Onur Durahim, CEO of Princip AI. And for this panel, I would like to invite our distinguished panelists. There will be 3 joining us today with us. First, Ershad Zor, Head of Data and Reports Team at Startup Centrum. And now, secondly, Dr. Abdullah Kablan, serial tech entrepreneur and AI investor. Great to have you at our panel. And finally, Christos Panagopoulos, Business Solutions Director for Middle East and Africa at Temenos. Great. We have around 30-40 minutes for the panel, and I leave you to the capable hands of our moderator. So enjoy.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. So first of all, I want to thank the organizers, actually SOFTin Space team, for organizing such a wonderful event. So we will be discussing AI, growing use of AI in banking industry, and we will talk about neobanks and challenger banks in this panel. So first, let me introduce our speakers. So I'm Ahmet Onur Durahim. I'm the founder of Princip AI, and I'm also an assistant professor at Boğaziçi University. And my research interests are in AI, actually applications of AI in finance and education. So let me introduce you Mr. Ershad Zor, who is the head of data and reports team at Startup Centrum. So he's responsible for producing investment and vertical reports that focus on startups from Turkey, MENA, and Europe. And I want to give him, if you want to add anything.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have Dr. Abdullah Kablan, who is an AI and blockchain expert and serial tech entrepreneur and AI investor. So throughout his career, he has founded and successfully exited multiple tech companies focused on deep learning and process automation, and he currently invests in deep tech companies in fintech, neuromorphics, fitness technology, and metaverse applications. And also he's a lecturer. Dear Abdullah, do you want to add anything?
Thank you. Yeah, obviously, I'm very proud of the academic side as well. But the funny thing is that it's such a great time to be in AI, because for the past 12 years, whenever I would say I have a PhD in the use of AI in finance, it used to be the end of the conversation. But for the past maybe 6, 7 months, as soon as you mention AI, people are now interested. So it's very good to be in AI at the moment.
Oh, great. Great to have you here. And our last speaker, Christos Panagopoulos. He's the Business Solutions Director for Middle East and Africa of Temenos. And he has been working at Temenos for past 13 years and working with clients in Balkans, Central and Eastern Europe, Russia, Middle East and Africa, designing and proposing banking solutions that bring value and simplify the IT landscape. And he's a domain expert in technology, software as a service technologies, AI, analytics, and architecture. And Mr. Panagopoulos, if you want to add. Yeah, great.
Thank you very much for the invitation and a very interesting panel. And yes, it's amazing to see how technology has disrupted the environment and how technology is now entering in the banking, or the banking is now bringing technology and leverages technology to proceed further. We're living in exciting times, AI, SaaS, cloud, all these terminologies come and bring some value to the banks. Very exciting times to live and work within. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. So the panel's topic is growing use of AI in banking industry. So actually, AI has a great impact on our business life, also on the society. So according to a recent study by McKinsey, the generative AI, so generative AI is much popular today. Generative AI generates a value around 2.8%, more than 2.8% in an annual basis in banking industry. Actually, this amounts to more than $200 billion per year. So it's really has a huge impact on actually job market also. We all talk about AI will making our jobs obsolete and creating new jobs, but the most important thing is actually the time spent in between the creation of a job and it is becoming obsolete. So the new jobs, like we are talking about text generators like ChatGPT or Google's Bard. Actually, there is a new domain called prompt engineering, how you should ask questions to get the responses that you intend to get. So actually, this was around, it has been 2 years that we are talking about prompt engineering. Now we have some tools that does it for you. So it's really the pace of these developments is important. So, we have seen discussions on actually fintech industry. We have seen some startup pitches here. So I want to start the discussion by creating a startup. I asked ChatGPT, so this is an imperative thing to do when you give a talk about AI nowadays. So I asked ChatGPT to create actually, where was my question? As actually Simon Sinek suggests, I start with a question, why? Why I want to create a new startup. So what I asked GPT is, get me a value proposition and business model for a new neobank startup that excels in artificial intelligence. And what I get is, first, the business model. Actually, this is really related to our topic, the growing use of AI. First, it tells me, okay, the business model is based on the personalized financial insights. So it says we utilize AI algorithms to analyze user financial data and generate personalized insights on spending patterns, budgeting, and savings. And our customers receive actionable recommendations to optimize their financial health and achieve their goals. So this is actually one of the main goals of banking industry, fintech industry. If you want to move to neobank, to be a neobank, then you have to provide personalization. So this is one of the most important topics in AI, the personalization. So you have to give your customers personalized recommendations, and we all have different behaviors, so we may use AI systems to get some insights. The second thing, it says AI-powered virtual assistant. So it says our neobank features an AI-powered virtual assistant that understands natural language queries and provides this personalized support and guidance. So this is, again, a really important area of in AI, virtual assistants. Nowadays, we all use these GPT tools. So this is, again, an important part of our neobank. Then, to summarize, it says we provide advanced risk assessment, automated expense tracking, fraud detection and security, intelligent investment management, partnerships and integration, and we provide subscription-based model. So it tells us we have to have a company that is based on subscription, that has a subscription-based model. So last word about the value proposition. So it says by combining AI technology with personalized banking solutions, our neobank revolutionizes the way individuals manage their finances. We empower customers with real-time insights, intelligent automation, and tailored recommendations, ensuring they achieve financial well-being and make informed decisions throughout their financial journey. So this is just suggestions from a text generator, ChatGPT. So I want to thank ChatGPT. So if you are looking for an AI solution provider as a partner, so you are very welcome. So I want to start with Mr. Christos Paganopoulos. So
just keep Christos, it's easier.
Christos, okay,
Yeah,
thank you. So can you please elaborate on neobanks and what we are waiting? Actually, if banks want to transform into neobanks, what are the trends and what they need to do?
Yeah, so more or less, ChatGPT was almost right. I think these are the key trends, and this is what we also see in Temenos with our interaction with the customers all around the world. So we can see some key trends where AI has something to say, has something to assist us with. I would definitely agree with the hyper-personalization. Artificial intelligence can help into creating a personalized value for the customer. Artificial intelligence can help in the predictive analytics particularly. So it can, it's exciting to see how precise it is in estimating the customer attrition, for example, or suggesting next best product, next best action, right? So these are particular elements where AI can definitely boost the hyper-personalization. In other words, the customer has an experience from the bank, gets an experience which is absolutely suited on his needs, on his demands, on his wants. And actually, hyper-personalization gives a feeling. The customer understands that the bank really cares for them. So, very big area where we see drastic impact from the artificial intelligence. An interesting one is the AML functions, anti-money laundering, anti-fraud functions as well. And the use of AI can reduce dramatically the rate of false positives. We've seen, of course, there is very very good softwares in the market, in the banking domain, that perform very well in terms of AML. Yet, we see a big demand in further improving those softwares with the help of artificial intelligence, right? And another domain, a third thing I think that my friend ChatGPT did not mention, is those smart robo-advisors, the portfolio advisors, the automated portfolio management, portfolio creation, management, and execution via dedicated robo-advisors, another major area where AI has significant, can contribute significantly and can make a difference. More or less, I would keep it to those three domains in terms of AI.
Mhm. Thank you very much. Do you have anything to say about the neobank part? So what do you think, what should traditional banks do to become a neobank or a challenger bank?
Right, so challenger banks is also a very interesting topic. It's something that emerged almost in parallel with the COVID, and the trend remained in the market. The interesting thing about the neobanks is how they utilize technology to enter into the banking domain and disrupt the traditional banking. So the neobanks or challenger banks or digital banks heavily utilize artificial intelligence, but they're also utilizing cloud platforms that provide scalability. They use automated functions for running the bank. They use ready hosting solutions, everything on the cloud, everything utilized as a software, as a service. So they just focus on the business model, right? On creating business value rather than, you know, spending resources, spending time and energy to run the system. So that's a very innovative idea in the banking domain, not so innovative in the industry as such. It's the platformification concept, right? We've seen that with the taxis. You all are aware of Uber, right? Uber used the platform to connect the taxis with the consumers. We've seen that in the e-commerce, you know, Amazon, right? So it's now this platformification concept coming into the banking, right? So we use technology to bring closer the bank with the end consumer. So new for the banking, but quite a well-known concept, and the challenger banks are the first to exactly grab this and utilize and monetize this concept. Now, I don't know about the future, but what we see for the past is that all this new utilization of technology makes sense, provides lower TCOs, provides better experience. We spoke about the AI before, and it started to attract the attention of the old traditional banking players as well, right? So it's a process on the go, and it's really exciting to see where it's gonna take us. I'm not sure about the operational models of the banks. If I knew that, I would be running a bank. But what I know is that technology utilization is definitely now boosting the banking business, reducing the cost, and by offering better experience, allows the banks to harness this technology advance and, you know, proceed towards bigger targets in the future.
Thank you very much. Those were valuable insights. So I want to ask Arshad, Mr. So what do you think about our new startup? So he's from the startup, he knows startup ecosystem. Then can you please talk about the recent trends in the startup ecosystem around MENA, and can we talk about how these startups use AI or provide some AI solutions?
Yes, of course. So, if we talk about the startups in the world, we should consider that every region's needs are different. So, when we look at the start of the U.S., they have the top maturity fintech market in the world. Yes, but they have some problems, like they have some inefficiencies in the customer services, or they are not have a good effect, or we are not seeing in good effects or any effects of the open banking in the US. But when we come to the Europe, we can say, yeah, digitalization can be a problem in the Europe. Maybe you must know that the paperwork is still an issue in most of the European countries, like Germany. But there are some very good regulators, and they are working on to open ways for these startups, like in the open banking or in the open banking payment services or payment plus services. And for the Europe, in the future, by 2030, some reports says they're waiting to expansion in the European side. But these are the general US and European. But when we come to our regions, like where we start with the Asia Pacific, in the Asia side, there are some predictions that the Asia Pacific will be a top fintech market by the 2030. Why is that? Because there are a huge amount of SMEs, that means of customers. There are lots of unbanked adults in the US, in the Asia. For example, when you look at India, I have looked some research that says around 2 million people who not have a credit card, and unbanked people. So that's a huge market, and that can be an issue for the future. For example, when we look at the Indian startups, startups and banks, we can see that customer acquisition can be a huge deal in the future. So the banks or the startups can be focused on that in the future. When we come to the Africa and MENA, the report says Africa and Middle East and Northern Africa region is the fastest growing ecosystem for now, and they are expecting the huge growth in the future. But the issue in here is, again, the customer acquisition. When we look at for example, in Nigeria, I have a Nigerian example, like in the 70% of the adults have the smartphones, but only 2% have the credit cards. So that can be an issue for the future. But that's fastest growing startups, but there are some general topics like the credit scoring and risk assessments or fraud detection. They are the top issues for now. And one thing actually I want to tell you is about let me see. Oh yeah. It's about the customer services. Customer experience is the key. I think I am the youngest one in here. I born in 1998, and I'm a Generation Z kind of. So I want to tell you about what my experience. I'm a customer of a banks, and I have some issues. Like, okay, banks have chatbots, and I ask them anything, but I just get answers. The answers are all in the app also. I can find my answer in the app by clicking something. I don't need chatbot for that. I need chatbot for the thing I cannot do from your mobile app or from your website. And also, I have never called the bank via phone because I don't like it. So, because also when I call them, that's like, okay, click 5, click 9, click 2, 8 to there. That's a huge problem. Also, some banks are looking for voice messages like, okay, just tell me what you want and we can direct you to there. But that's a huge problem in Turkey, and I think in the whole world, because the accent is a huge problem in here. I've seen lots of people saying that, okay, I want to go check my bank account, but the phone voice doesn't understand you. So I think the key is the understanding your customers very well, and startups should focus on that because startups should be creating a value in here, but the value comes from the customers. You should create value to the customers. So of course there are general things, but the customer experience can be the key in the future for the customer part, of course. Customer acquisition and putting your customer as your customer for the continuing part. Also, personalization and recommendation systems are the key, can be the key in the future because everything goes very individual. We are more personalized. The recommendation systems can be helpful in the both acquiring a customer or putting customer in your side. And yeah, maybe we are seeing lots of trading and investment management and credit scoring startups. It's like there are crowd in here, there are crowd in the ecosystems, also in MENA, Europe, and Turkey. Lots of startups who are focusing on predicting the assets, predicting the crypto or etc. But we will see which one or how they will be effective in the future, in the near future, I think. And that's all for now.
Great. Thank you very much. So we should base our neobank solution in MENA, I think, as a startup. Okay. So yesterday we have seen startup pitches, and there were some AI solutions, and we have seen some blockchain solutions and some metaverse part of them. So and there is a convergence of these. Actually, they were separate domains, but nowadays we are seeing some solutions that merge these solutions in different domains. So I want to ask Dr. Kaplan, who is an expert in these fields, about his opinions.
Well, to start off, I think the best way to get around this is to quote Thomas Edison when he said, there is always a better way, find it. And when it comes to AI and a lot of the emerging technologies out there, they've actually moved from a good-to-have situation to a must-have situation. I mean, we speak a lot about personalization in this panel and many other panels, but what does that really mean? What is personalization? Yeah, making something personalized. Making something personalized is actually like a 5-step process. I mean, you usually start with data. When you process data, data becomes information. Information evolves into knowledge. So suddenly you acquire and have knowledge about a specific problem or about a domain. And knowledge with time evolves into understanding. And understanding with application, with processing, and with intelligence, it actually evolves into wisdom. Most systems out there, or AI systems nonetheless, are still stuck in the 3rd phase, which is being fantastically glorified and brilliantly built knowledge bases, but we have not achieved like the wisdom level yet. And the difference is vast. I mean, you know, knowledge is knowing the difference between true and false. Wisdom is knowing the difference between right and wrong, for example. Or like to say when I'm lecturing students, I always say knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to add it to your fruit salad because it will taste really bad. And that's something is very difficult for an AI to know. However, AI is actually getting closer and closer as we go. And the convergence that is happening is quite crucial and quite important because as a user, you really don't care at the end of the day what technology is being used, whether it's AI, machine learning, blockchain technology, metaverse. You just want to have a very good experience. You want a product that is very easily to consume, a product that is very easy to use. So when you are using like a product that is giving you the outcome that you require, you don't really care about the technology. If you think about, you know, the internet, it existed since the mid-70s as TCP/IP. No one really cared. It wasn't until one fine moment in the mid-90s when the browser was launched, and suddenly everything made sense. I was like, oh, this is the internet, this is the World Wide Web, this is a directory, and this is where I can go and find and fetch the information. We are now reaching the browser moment for AI, for blockchain technology. Blockchain, speaking of banking, and this is what we're talking about here, the main important attribute of banking in general is trust. So the reason people use banks is because they can trust banks. However, trust has been shaken quite a lot since 2008, so people have looked at alternatives. And now you have technologies that are trustless, that are ensuring trust, that are immutable, that are traceable, that are actually providing me with the trust that I need. So one could easily argue that even though people will always need banking, they do not necessarily need banks as we know them, because if you think about the three main pillars of banks, which is payments, deposits, and transfers, now you can do a lot of these attributes using tech products. You can transfer money using TransferWise, deposit on your PayPal, and go and get a loan from a peer-to-peer lending platform. Inject intelligence into that via machine learning, via AI, and you're actually providing the user with banking without them needing to actually use a bank. And to be very provocative and at the risk of annoying a lot of the fine audience in here, like my personal prediction is that within the next 10 to 15 years, probably half of the world's banks are actually going to disappear. The other half are gonna be the clever ones that will understand that at the end of the day, the bank will still have the most two important assets, which is the customers and the data. And if they can take that data to within that journey of turning it into information, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, you'll be able to service that client. And to come back to the point of Arshad here, who's the youngest millennial here, I've read a statistic by the Millennial Institute recently, and said 71% of millennials and below would rather go to the dentist than speak to their banker. No one likes to go to the dentist. So if they actually would rather do that than go and speak to their banker, their financial advisor, then we know that there's a user experience problem. And if this is your future customers, future clients, you'd better gear your products towards a way that is much easier for them to consume. Because guess what? The big tech companies are actually actively acquiring licenses that are performing the exact same functions. Apple is moving into banking. Amazon is moving into payments. Meta is moving into payments. Google has Google Pay. So it's going to be very, very difficult for the incumbent, legacy banks to be competing with these tech companies. So coming back, the convergence is happening. You mentioned metaverse as well, which is a whole different topic, and do not want to deviate much into it. But it will eventually provide users with an experience that is also quite visual. I wrote an article recently to Entrepreneur Inc., and the title of the article was "Singularity is approaching fast, but it will happen first in the metaverse." And singularity is the notion or the concept of artificial intelligence superseding human intelligence and being able to perform certain functions that are not quasi-human, but are actually more efficient than humans. In the real world, it's very difficult to build robots physically that will actually look like humans and perform better. But in the metaverse, in VR, and I'm quite an avid VR user, now we're interacting with VR agents and AI agents that you genuinely don't know whether you're interacting with a human avatar or with a VR avatar. And that's a point that is actually going to be used in both ways. A good way, which is being able to have your financial advisor there in VR and you being able to seek advice from them without needing to go and sit down at the bank and have an orange juice and wait for half an hour to get your service out there. And the second part is actually be able to build some form of bond with these products because of the ease of use and because of the visualization. Because visualization is a very, very important element. One of the reasons why we could not bond with AI yet is because we could not visualize it. Think of Siri, think of Cortana, all these fancy AIs that we've had for more than 10 years ago. We did not bond with them emotionally because we could not see them. Usually humans are visual beings. You think of someone as a friend when you can actually see them and visualize them. That's why you have a human best friend, or you can have your dog as your best friend, because when you come home, it comes to you, it wags its tail, it barks. So you feel that emotional bond because your brain is secreting all these chemicals that are actually identifying that as a friend because you can visualize them. But you wouldn't deal with your human best friend and your dog friend the same, because if you ask, your human best friend, to go and fetch a ball for you, they'll actually really get annoyed and angry at you. But you actually identify them in the same way. Think of, 25 years ago, the Japanese introduced the world to this brilliant little zero intelligence toy called Tamagotchi, where you have a character that is battery powered, and all you have to do is feed it and bathe it, feed it and bathe it. But it was on a screen, it looked lovely and cute, and it's a nice character. And people bonded emotionally with it to the extent that when a battery ran out from a Tamagotchi device, children got depressed. And that's mainly because you can visualize them. So speaking of metaverse, as soon as you can visualize intelligence, you will be tricked into bonding emotionally with it and be tricked into wanting to consume that product much, much more. So coming back to point, convergence is actually happening at a very, very rapid rate. We're soon gonna live in a world where, I'll be the same way dealing with ChatGPT, I'll be telling my economic agent, exchange 200 euros to dollars for me by just speaking to them, and they'll be doing it for me. I'll be like, go and buy, $25 worth of Apple shares for me, and they will execute it for you by just interacting, or perhaps in the future even thinking about it. And that is happening mainly because of the convergence between AI, machine learning, blockchain technology, which if we think as blockchain technology as a train, if AI as a train, blockchain will be the rails on which that train is actually moving, because you cannot let AI go rogue, which is why everyone is scared of it, rightly so. But if you rein AI with a mechanism that is quite powerful, like the concept of a decentralized ledger, and for the AI to perform any operation, it needs to achieve consensus, then you're actually reining AI's danger. So convergence is real, is happening fast, and banks that are not gonna adapt to that, I'm quite sure that they are gonna disappear.
Great, thank you. Let us discuss for 3 or 4 more minutes about the technology behind AI developments. As you know, what made possible today's advancements in AI, actually we can give 3 reasons. One of them is the data itself. So the big data is really important. You have to own the data to have powerful AI tools. The second one is advancements in hardware, and then the software architectures. So here, the most important thing is the advancements in cloud computing. And we have Christos here, who is an expert in cloud computing and software architectures around it. So what do you think about the role of cloud computing in actually the AI in banking? Because there are some problems because of the data in Turkey and some other countries. Your data must reside in private repositories. What do you think about the future role of cloud computing in this respect?
Right. So it's a broader topic. It's the regulation and how financial institutions should comply to the regulation. It touches both aspects. It touches the AI itself, what data it processes, how it processes them, what is the confidentiality behind this. what is the privacy ensured or not. And it also touches the data residency, as you correctly mentioned. In regards to the AI, it's key to note that the financial institutions are obliged to be able to explain why AI acted like that, why a decision was made, why a credit scoring is what it is, or even how we can improve it, or what went wrong with this. So there is a need for explainability. And that now becomes a regulation. In UK already, financial institutions, not only, every AI user, there was a case with Uber as well, right? They used AI, and they rated some drivers are very low perform, and they fired them. And the drivers, the taxi drivers, went against Uber in UK, and they won, because Uber could not explain why those drivers were rated low. Imagine if that happens to a bank, you will be very heavily you will have very heavy penalties. So a financial institution needs to be able, apart from using the AI, to be able to explain it as well. This is why the credit scoring is this. That's why how the customer was onboarded. This is why a decision was made. There has to be clear, crystal clear transparency and explainability. And I think that's a very key aspect that touches the use of AI in financial institutions. In regards to cloud computing and the data residency, I think it's a matter of time until those restrictions are resolved. In Europe, it's a European Union, so there's no such issue. In US, there is no such issue. We face the issue in our region, especially in the region I'm serving, in the Middle East and Africa as well. We still see those restrictions in terms of data residency. What we see is that the financial benefits of cloud computing and the market need and the market drive indeed push the central banks to loosen those restrictions. We see that in Middle East right now. As I'm talking to you, there is a couple of countries in the GCC who have eased those regulations. They allow their banks to run while the data are stored in another country within GCC. But the trend is that this closed circle of GCC is expanding. Now we see this touching other countries around GCC, not only inside GCC. And the same trend also holds true for Africa. So my observation and what we see in Temenos is that those borders, those Chinese walls are about to fall apart pretty soon because of the market pressure and because of the financial benefit of the banks. Running your software on the cloud, utilizing cloud computing, reduces dramatically the TCO and the operational costs and the operational risks as well. This cannot be neglected. I think that the future will drive us towards, relaxing the regulation over the data residency.
Yeah, okay, so we will see, I think, we will see a globalization in data residency also, I think. Do we have time to take questions from the audience?
Take one question.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
Thank you very much. دكتور عبد الله يعني اليوم انت قاعد تقول لنا سكروا روحوا حشانكم ما عادش في مصارف يعني. والقطاع المصرفي هو يعني قطاع part of an international سيستم، يعني مستحيل يكون دولة عندها مصارف تشتغل بطريقة معينة وخارج التطور اللي حيصير في بقية العالم. كيف ممكن تكون العلاقة في رأيك لما يكون فيه advancement في جهة معينة أو في دول معينة وتأخير في دول أخرى؟ what will happen يعني what will happen and this is I think a dilemma في ليبيا we will face. فيا ريت يعني أنا agree with what you said. اليوم الناس ما عادش تبي تمشي المصارف، الناس ما تبيش تشوف مصرفيين، كل عملياتها قاعدة تقوم بها من خلال applications، تقوم بها من خلال شركات تقنية مثل أمازون وأبل وإلى آخره. فخلينا نتكلم على البلد اللي نحن منها ليبيا، وعلى التأخير اللي ساير عنا من الريجيليشنز. من كريستوس talked about cloud computing and the benefit of cloud computing and the restrictions اللي سايرة في cloud computing. نحن في دولة ما زال الناس تفكر إن cloud computing هو عبارة عن storage في السحاب. how do you feel يعني أنا الخوف متاعي إن نحن we will be completely taken out of the international system.
شكرا أستاذ نعمان. Thank you for the question. Mr. Naaman said, I said all banks should close and leave. In fact, to maybe reposition that stance a bit, I would like to quote Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin said, it's not the species that are the strongest or the most intelligent that would survive, but the ones that are most adaptable to change. Change is happening and it's unstoppable. So you need to either adapt to change, or unfortunately, given Darwinian theory of evolution, you'll actually go extinct. So that is the fact, which is why I predicted only half would disappear and the other half should change. But coming back to the very good question, I think that the biggest responsibility is actually on the regulator to allow for such change to happen, to allow for the players to adapt to the change and to allow for or to embrace the change and even create, like in many countries around the world, like the regulators understood that they just cannot stop change. They would love to, a lot of them, but they understand that they cannot stop it. We all understand, customer protection, investor protection, and all that, which is what a regulator should do and which we all should accept. But when change comes, it actually would change and drastically shift like the status quo. And that's why they created sandboxes, they created like innovation hubs, they created like certain parametric frameworks whereby innovators would come test their products before they get given to the general public. Unfortunately, it's not happening everywhere. And unfortunately, what Mr. Naaman said, if you don't do that, you'll actually eventually going to be taken out of the international system. Like it's as simple as that. I mean, think landlines. Like we barely use landlines at the moment. Voice over IP has completely disrupted the landline, whole business model. There's still landlines somewhere. Few people use it. Few countries do use it. But eventually, 10, 15 years from now, you'll not see landlines anymore. It's exactly the same with banking. If you don't adapt to change, you'll just risk becoming either the only country in the world with landlines. And if you want to make a phone call there, just go there and pick up the phone and dial the number. That's as simple as that. So it's the regulator that needs to embrace the change and create the right frameworks for innovators to innovate and for governments and investors to actually invest in that. But it all starts with the regulator. And if the regulator doesn't understand that, they're doing a major disservice to the entire industry.
Yeah. Great. So thank you very much for the speakers. Great question. Thanks.
Is it possible to get the question later because we're off schedule? But you can always get hang of the moderators and panel. So a big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much.